Okay, everyone. So I was requested to react to more of Mathwiz's videos. Now we did watch one of his videos before, and you can go find it on the channel. But I saw this video right here, Kurapika versus Sasuke Uchiha, a thematic breakdown. I thought it would be interesting to react to this. Now, look, I think a lot of people have made the comparisons between Kurapika and Sasuke from Naruto and Kurapika from Hunter x Hunter. You know, a lot of their backstories are very similar. You know, they have similar abilities to where, you know, they once they get emotional, their eyes turn red. There's obviously a lot of similarities. People have already made, you know, the jokes, but I think that other than that, they're not really the same character. Now, granted, they have even the same goal, which is to get revenge on. In Sasuke's case, it's revenge against one person, but in Kurapika's case, it's revenge against a group, and basically revenge against the person, or in Kurapika's case, the group responsible for murdering their family. So yeah, there is a lot of similarities, but I think also there's differences between the two. So let's go ahead and watch this. As always, guys, I'll leave a link to this video and the channel in the description. Head on over there, subscribe, support not just to Mathwiz, but every creator that we watch here. And also, while you're here, maybe you could consider hitting the subscribe button and hitting the bell to be notified whenever I post a new video. Leave a like, share, comment, all those things that the YouTube algorithm absolutely loves. And in the comments, you could also leave a recommendation for me to react to. Leave the title of the video and the channel where I can find it. Don't link it, because again, YouTube does this thing where they remove links. I don't know why they do this, but it is what it is. So there you go, the title of the video and the channel where I can find it if you want me to react to it. So let's go ahead.
There's a good reason why Kurapika from Hunter x Hunter is often compared to Sasuke Uchiha from Naruto. Both characters have a tragic backstory that involves the slaughtering of their entire clan. Both seek vengeance upon the ones responsible for their clan's massacre. Both become friends with the story's protagonist. Both have special eyes. The similarities are too glaring to miss. Unfortunately, these comparisons often understate the fundamental differences that set these two characters apart, not just in terms of their moral code, but in terms of how each world is structured to play into their respective narratives. When Sasuke is introduced, he states that his one goal is to kill a certain man. He hates a lot of things, and he doesn't really care for anything. This blunt response clearly emphasizes Sasuke's one-track mind. He is laser focused on attaining this one goal, and he does nothing to distract himself from it. Kurapika's introduction, on the other hand, is much more nuanced. Before we can even learn about his ambition, we already know that Kurapika is cautious and honorable. When asked about why he wants to become a hunter, Kurapika avoids the question by saying, "It's quite simple to avoid pesky questions by offering a plausible lie. However, it is quite shameful to rely upon deceit." From this, we can gather that Kurapika operates by a strong moral code. His hesitation also clues us into his reserved, tactical nature. While Gon happily admits his reason for being there, and Leorio adamantly rejects the question, Kurapika doesn't emote. This once again hints at how calculated Kurapika truly is. He isn't willing to make a move until he has completely assessed the situation and has adamantly developed a game plan to address it. Once he realizes that hiding his motivation will keep him out of the hunter exam, Kurapika quickly reveals that he is the last survivor of his clan and that he vows to eradicate the ones responsible, the Phantom Troop. After being told that he will be throwing away his life, Kurapika replies, "I don't fear death. My only fear is that my rage will fade over time." This delivery varies considerably with that of Sasuke's. While both are determined to achieve their ambitions, Kurapika's morals provide a potential objection to this path of hatred. His ultimate goal is to murder the entire Phantom Troop, yet he looks down upon deceit and dishonor, even when those practices could provide an easy solution to any problems he might encounter, such as this interrogation. Conversely, Sasuke's ethics are ambiguous. He has no other noteworthy passions or principles. His sole motivation is to murder the man who exterminated his clan, and his dialogue hints at the idea that Sasuke will act immorally in order to fulfill this objective. These two scenes make a strong counterargument to the notion that authors working in a visual-based medium should follow the rule of show, don't tell. Exposition is an important part of any story, and one of the most effective ways to learn about new people is through their dialogue. Actions are important, But
Yes.
instead of avoiding exposition altogether, artists should focus on how they can better integrate exposition into the story when it's necessary.
Right, and I think that that's the problem that a lot of people have with certain stories, that the dialogue, especially when it comes to exposition, can just feel really clunky. And also, sorry, but just real quick, I never noticed this before, but it's kind of funny that he's smoking through a pipe, but in the pipe he stuck a cigarette. I've watched this anime a bunch of times. I can't believe I never noticed this. Okay. Anyway, sorry, it's just something I wanted to point out. But yeah, anyway, like I was saying, I think the problem and why people say show don't tell is that I think most people prefer you show us what you want to convey, as opposed to just having a character sit down and basically look at the camera and say, you know, things like, hey, just to tell you, this person is this is their name, and they basically tell you their backstory, their motivation, everything, and they don't show you any of it. Yeah, it can feel really clunky, and you know, there's nothing wrong with exposition, there's nothing wrong with that, but it has to be done well. Like, let's say, for example, you explain something to the character that, you know, the character already knows, and you're left asking yourself, wait, why are you telling this character something you said that they already know? Like, whenever a character says, as you know, whenever they say that, it implies, okay, but the character already knows this, so why are you explaining it to them? And that reveals to us that, oh, they're just using it as a chance for exposition, and it's just done so, you know, clunky. It feels clunky. A good example of exposition is when you're, you know, having a character explain to another character something that they don't know, and by extension you're telling it to us, the audience. Like, let's say a character walks up to someone and says, hey, who's that standing over there? And then they explain that to them, you know, this is a new character, they're just introduced, and this character who does know them is explaining to the other character who asked, and by extension they're telling us, the audience or the readers, who this character is. Now, when it comes to you know, how a character feels, how they think, how they like to act, I feel like that's probably better shown through actions as opposed to dialogue, in my opinion. And I think that that's yeah, so yeah, I do agree with them. There's nothing wrong with exposition. I just have a problem when it's done, well, I and other people have a problem when it's done, you know, in a bit of a lazy way.
If you want to see another example of exposition done well, check out Digibro's videos on Zenkyo no Terror. Now that we've established their differences, let's widen the gap between Sasuke and Kurapika's character arcs. Not through their actions yet, though. Instead, I want to focus on the purpose of their enemies as a plot device. In the aforementioned exposition, we learned that Sasuke is after one man, whereas Kurapika is after an entire group. Masashi Kishimoto sets up Sasuke to be a simple kid with a one-dimensional goal, whereas Yoshihiro Togashi makes Kurapika a multifaceted character.
And I would argue that it is simple at the beginning, but it does get a little bit more nuanced as you start to discover more and more about the relationship, and as it you know, as the story goes on.
Character with an evolving goal. I'm not saying that Sasuke isn't a complex character, and I'll get back to that idea in a bit. But as a plot device, Sasuke's room to develop in the confines of his arc is much more restricted than that of Kurapika. While Kurapika can and will score victories over members of the Phantom Troop, Sasuke can't defeat Itachi. When Kurapika kills Uvogin during the Yorknu arc, his journey isn't over. There are still 12 other members of the troop to deal with. Kurapika's end goal will remain intact until he either eliminates the troop entirely, suffers a drastic change in his ideology, or dies. When Sasuke kills Itachi, his journey is over. His goal has been realized. After that, Kishimoto needed to either remove Sasuke from the story or make him adapt. Kishimoto chose the latter, but to do that, Sasuke needed a new goal. In Hunter x Hunter, Kurapika
I would kind of disagree with one thing.
Or dies. When Sasuke kills Itachi, his journey is over.
Well, I will say this, and this is still heartbreaking, but I will say this. I don't necessarily agree with this, that, you know, his journey is over, because remember earlier when, you know, they meet up, Sasuke specifically says that once I kill you, I'm gonna go kill Madara, because he figured out that during the Uchiha clan massacre, he realized that, you know, as powerful as Itachi was, even he couldn't have taken them all out on his own. He had to have a collaborator, or as he said, a co-conspirator. and and Itachi revealed to him it was Madara Uchiha, and then Sasuke, after he killed Itachi, would have gone after him. So no, I don't agree with this. His journey wasn't necessarily over. Yes, his main journey that Kishimoto assigned to him was over, but Sasuke still had another goal. Like, he still would have gone after Madara after Itachi. So, but then of course, Obito came up to him. I don't remember if he ever told him that I'm, Madara Uchiha, and I can't remember. It's been a minute. But yeah, he came up to him, told him the truth, and then Sasuke's goal changed to taking vengeance against the Leaf.
His goal
for what they did to Itachi.
After that, Kishimoto needed to either remove Sasuke from the story or make him adapt. Kishimoto chose the latter, but to do that, Sasuke needed a new goal. In Hunter x Hunter, Kurapika can adapt and maintain the same goal, only because that goal can keep evolving along with him. If Sasuke were pursuing the entire Akatsuki instead of just Itachi, he could do the same. But that was never Kishimoto's intention for the character. Many Naruto fans were upset by Sasuke's sudden character shift following Itachi's death, but that is a direct result of Sasuke's limited room for growth. Because Sasuke couldn't adapt during his quest to kill Itachi, he isn't prepared for the barrage of new information that comes to light. While Kurapika was sprinting down a winding road, Sasuke had been running in a straight line that led him to a brick wall. He makes a rash decision because he lacks knowledge or experience. It's as if he had been writing with his right hand all of his life, but after breaking that hand, he now has to write a 100-page essay in a different language with his left hand. He makes a mistake because it's nigh impossible for
I will say that that's probably, like, I would change that, analogy from left hand to right hand, because I think it's revealed that Sasuke, I think it's he is ambidextrous, like he can use both, but I think he mostly favors his left hand. I think it's been revealed that he is, because remember Hagoromo, when he's talking to Naruto and Sasuke in that mental space, when he's about to give them power, he says, raise your dominant arm, and Sasuke raises his left hand where Naruto raises his right hand. Now, that could be just something that was done visually from Kishimoto, because it would have looked a little bit weird for, both of them to just raise the right hand, because, you had to do the whole thing where they put their hand on Kaguya in order to activate the Six Paths catastrophic planetary devastation in order to seal her up. It just looked better to have Naruto use his right hand and Sasuke use his left hand. It just looked better. And of course, every time they do the Rasengan Chidori clash, it's the way it looks, left hand, right hand. It just looks a lot better. So you could say maybe that was done mostly for, a visual, from a visual perspective, but I think it is kind of implied that Sasuke is predominantly left-handed. So I would change that from from right hand to left hand. And now he has to, because that's where he is now. He had to train himself to use his right hand. Although again, I think he's good with both, but I think he mostly favors the left hand.
For him not to make one. Hunter x Hunter's York-New arc actually provides a similar experience for Kurapika. Around the arc's halfway point, the entire troop appears to be dead. At first, this sends Kurapika into a brief depression. His life's ambition is suddenly ripped away, and he is left with nothing to show for it. Because he was able to form meaningful connections, however, it looks like Kurapika would have bounced back if given the time to do so. Of course, the troop isn't really dead,
and then
so that idea dies before it can actually take shape. But it does answer the question of how Kurapika would fare in a situation that parallels Sasuke's plight at the start of the Great Ninja War. Kurapika supported his friends, and that allowed him to find solace in a world where he couldn't avenge the Kurta clan. Sasuke abandoned his friends, so he has no one to guide him through his crisis. Connections play a large role in both works as a whole, but they really do create a night and day difference between Sasuke and Kurapika. Most of Sasuke's defining moments, like his decision to leave Konoha, his fight with Itachi, and his attack on Konoha, are based on the exclusion of his peers, while the conclusion of the York-New arc is drastically altered by the inclusions of Gon, Killua, and Leorio. After they are taken hostage, Gon and Killua cooperate with the Phantom Troop when they could easily escape, simply because they don't want Kurapika to kill anyone. In the end, Kurapika chooses his friends over his goal in one of my favorite climaxes to a shonen arc.
The York City arc is absolutely fantastic. It's very well written.
Not a single ounce of blood is shed in the final exchange of the arc. And while Pakunoda does die at the end, that's only because she chose to break
because she chose to break the vow
Kurapika for the sake of her comrades. In Hunter x Hunter, war and murder are generally a last resort, and even then, they're never glorified. I can point you to the Chimera Ant arc for the most extreme example of Hunter x Hunter's take on war and bloodshed, but even Kurapika's fight with Uvogin highlights the character's hatred for torture. Compare that to Naruto, where the final arc is the Great Ninja War. In Naruto, violence is used as a tool to achieve peace. Characters gain a greater understanding of one another through their battles with each other. I'm not saying that Naruto praises murder, but it doesn't completely condemn it either. Neither of these characters made the top 10 list that I'm working on, but I do appreciate the journeys that each character.
Well, I do kind of want to say something about this. Is that
fight with Uvogin highlights the character's hatred for torture.
I will say this, that you know, if he's saying this like to say that, you know, Kurapika doesn't value, you know, murder, and that by extension Sasuke kind of does, I wouldn't necessarily agree with that, because it is heavily implied that Sasuke doesn't go out there and, you know, actively try to, well, he actually no, he doesn't. He remember, there's a moment when it kind of flashes back to, I think it's Orochimaru thinking about this, but it flashes back to a moment when he was training Sasuke, and he sent like I think it was like 100 or 1,000 goons, and he knocks them all out, doesn't kill a single one. And Orochimaru says that, you know, hey, you know, you didn't kill any of them. And Sasuke says, well, yeah, because there's only one person I want to kill. Literally one person. And for me personally, I will say this, I do kind of agree to an extent that Kurapika doesn't like violence. And that's not, I don't think Sasuke necessarily likes it. I think that he's just someone who doesn't have a problem with it, especially if it's needed. You know, he's someone who's more practical. Like he won't hesitate to use violence if that's what's necessary. And I don't think he cares who he uses it against. I mean, there's even a moment in the Naruto Gaiden story, Scarlet Spring, that was written by Kishimoto, when Sasuke is about to kill Shin, and one of the kids steps in front of him. Sasuke basically tells him to move aside, and when he doesn't, he says, look, I won't hesitate. I'm not as soft as Naruto. I will kill you if I have to. And then he's about to before Sarada stops him, and that leads to him kind of getting injured, which was kind of stupid. And yeah, that wasn't very smart by her to distract him. And yeah, so I wouldn't necessarily say that Sasuke is someone who, you know, as opposed to Kurapika, enjoys violence. I think he, like Kurapika, also sees, you know, violence only when it's necessary, like how Kurapika wants to kill them because of what they did. And it's not like he's going out there and actively, you know, looking for people to punch, hit, or kill. Hell, even when Sasuke finds out the truth and kind of becomes a little unhinged, even then he doesn't 100% forget who he is, because even like during the 5 Kage Summit arc, when they, you know, surround them, he openly tells them, listen, either leave or I will be forced to fight you. So even then he gives them a warning, and then of course they attack him, and then at that point he's basically just defending himself. And he wasn't interested in killing any of the 5 Kage, he just wanted Danzo. And of course the other 5 Kage got involved because you know, well, A got involved because Sasuke at the time he thought kidnapped B, when it turns out B actually managed to escape, and that's why he wanted him. And of course Sasuke was going to fight back because he wasn't just going to let him kill him. So yeah, I just wanted to say that real quick.
Compare that to Naruto, where the final arc is the Great Ninja War. In Naruto, violence is used as a tool to achieve peace. Characters gain a greater understanding of one another through their battles with each other. I'm not saying that Naruto praises murder, but it doesn't completely condemn it either. Neither of these characters made the top 10 list that I'm working on, but I do appreciate the journeys that each character went through. In the realm of fighting, however, Kishimoto's flaws as a writer are brought to the forefront. I like Sasuke as a character, but the overpowered nature of the Sharingan definitely brings down my opinion of his role in the story as a whole. I enjoyed his final fight with Naruto.
I'm just wondering, like, how so? Just to go back a second.
As a writer are brought to the forefront. I like Sasuke as a character, but the overpowered nature of the Sharingan definitely brings down my opinion of his role in the story as a whole. I enjoyed his final fight with
Again, I'm confused as to why that's the case. Like, what does him kind of having an overpowered ability do to bring him down as a character? I'm confused how that applies. I guess I mean, I kind of wish he would elaborate on that a little bit.
Naruto, but that mostly comes from the parts where they're just beating the hell out of each other. It's a hell of a sequence, but I couldn't help but tune out during the middle bit with all of the superpowers. In that regard, Kurapika is
I guess I can kind of agree with that. I don't think this was bad, but I think I kind of like or at least implied this in previous videos that I'm kind of not a fan of when Naruto decided to kind of go Dragon Ball and just have these overblown fights with like kaiju level creatures, you know, Sasuke with the perfect Susanoo, Naruto with the Kurama avatar and the tailed beast and the explosions and all that stuff, the deep Z style attacks. I've said it before, I'm not a fan of it. In Boruto they did kind of bring it down, but when you think about it, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, because, you know, like Ishiki is supposed to be a character that far surpasses these, you know, these two right here at this moment, and yet one attack from these two can like change the landscape, and yet somehow attacks from Ishiki barely crack the side of a mountain, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense when you think about it, and it just feels a little bit weird. But yeah, I guess that's kind of the cost of, you know, escalating things to this level, is that you realize that, oh, I may have taken it too far, and now when you try to bring it back down, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, because you made these characters ultra powerful, and it doesn't really make sense for them to like not change landscapes every single time they fight, because that's how powerful they are at this moment.
In that regard, Kurapika is a far more interesting character. He may be able to use his Scarlet Eyes to gain access to all 6 paths of the Nen system, but the entire application of Nen is a give-and-take sequence. Kurapika can essentially cheat the Nen system using his Scarlet Eyes, but in exchange, he can only use the strength of those abilities against members of the Phantom Troop. He's a monster when he fights against the troop, but he wouldn't stand a chance if he was pitted against any of the Royal Guards in the Chimera Ant arc, let alone Meruem. Yes, that also means that Sasuke would destroy him in a fight, so if that's why you're here, you can leave now. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, share it around. Spread word of my beaming brilliance across the internet, and together we can take over. If my garish genjutsu skills haven't sold you on shilling for me, maybe I can convince you to catch my previous Naruto creation by clicking the card on the right. I've run out of alliteration, so I'm calling it a day.
Okay, so that's the video. But yeah, I mean, look, here's the thing. There's things that he said that I do agree with. Obviously, again, if you he made some points that I don't necessarily agree with, and he made that point of you know, like the overpoweredness of the Sharingan, which again kind of like lowered him as a character. I don't necessarily understand why. Again, I kind of wish he would have elaborated on this a little bit, but yeah, again, I do agree with him. There are similarities and there are definitely differences, but some of the differences he brought up, I don't know if I necessarily agree with. Like he said, the whole thing about for example, the Naruto series not what was it, like it doesn't make it doesn't glorify murder, but it also doesn't like, what was it, let's bring it back.
Achieve peace.
Hold on, let's bring it back. I want to hear this again.
Characters gain a greater understanding of one another. Through violence is used as a tool to achieve peace. Characters gain a greater understanding.
Well, the thing about that is it's only done when it's needed. Like, it's not something that they do on purpose. It's only used when it's necessary.
Of one another through their battles with each other. I'm not saying that Naruto praises murder, but it doesn't completely condemn it either.
Well, actually, I mean, in a way, it kind of does. Like, remember, there's an entire moment in the near the end of the Naruto fight where Sasuke says, you know, just kill me at this point because that'll end like the cycle of hatred. And Naruto says, no. Like, there's even a moment during the after the 5 Kage summit where Naruto literally begs the Raikage, or no, I think it was before. Yeah, I think it might have been before the 5 Kage summit, where Naruto basically begs the Raikage not to try to kill Sasuke, because that's just going to continue like the cycle of violence. Because if you kill Sasuke, the people who care about him are just going to want to get payback on you, and then once they do that, people who cared about you are going to want payback against the people who cared about Sasuke, and it's just going to continue. And Naruto, like, he literally has an entire speech trying to say, we need to end this stuff, we need to stop resorting to violence. So I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't know if he maybe forgot about that moment, or I don't know. I just don't necessarily agree with that statement. But anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Remember to leave a like, share the video, subscribe if you haven't. Make sure to hit the bell for notifications. Check the description for the links, and bye for now.